very clear that war has never been India's choice.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vaishali Kohli and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Iran warns President Donald Trump that any U.S. attack will trigger strikes on Israel and American military bases in the region. The warning comes as Trump signals support for Iranian protesters and Israel remains on high alert. Meanwhile, Iranian authorities step up their crackdown on mass anti-government protests, with the Revolutionary Guards blaming terrorists for the unrest. Reports say more than 115 people are dead, hospitals are overwhelmed, and internet access has been cut for over 60 hours. In Minneapolis, tens of thousands turn out to protest and police arrest at least 29 people over the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent. One officer is injured after being hit by ICE as demonstrators clash with police over U.S. immigration enforcement. A Ukrainian drone attack kills a woman and damages homes and buildings in Russia's southern city of Voronezh. Local officials say Kyiv says the strikes target Russian military sites in response to Moscow's continued attacks on Ukraine. The U.S. and partner forces carry out large-scale airstrikes on Islamic State targets in Syria after a deadly attack on American troops last month. The Pentagon says the operation aims to crush IS threats and protect U.S. and allied forces in the region. Voters in Myanmar take part in the second phase of a military-run election that critics say is designed to formalize junta rule. The country remains gripped by civil war since the 2021 coup that detained Aung San Suu Kyi and ousted the elected government. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaks by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, confirms a U.S. official. Reports say the talks focus on Gaza, Syria and Iran's growing anti-government protests. In the entertainment world, the 83rd Golden Globe Awards begin tonight in Beverly Hills, with nominees including Timothée Chalamet, Leonardo DiCaprio and Emma Stone. Comedian Nikki Glaser returns as host for his second year after making history with her solo debut in 2025. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has addressed the recent surge in protests, calling for citizens to resist disruptions caused by rioters. In his first remarks following 3 nights of intensified unrest, Pezeshkian emphasized that the government's goal was to establish justice and urged the people not to let the protests destabilize society. He reaffirmed the government's commitment to maintaining order amidst ongoing tensions. Let's listen in.
درخواست اینه که در هر محله اینا جمع شن و اجازه ندن آشوبگری کنن. مردم باید در صحنه باشن. مردم نگرانی دارن، ما با اونا میشینیم و وظیفمونه نگرانی اونا رو حل کنیم. ولی وظیفه بالاتر اینه که اجازه ندیم یه عده آشوبگر بیان کل جامعه رو به هم بریزن.
I now have Andrew Latham, international affairs expert, joining me live from Minneapolis. Andrew, welcome to the broadcast, and I want to begin by asking you, how do you feel about Masoud Pezeshkian, who's now addressed the recent surge in protests and is calling for citizens to resist disruptions caused by rioters?
Well, it's not that surprising. His job, even though he's on the secular side of the two-tier Iranian state, is to keep the regime in power. And any threats to that regime are going to be met on a variety of fronts, including just in terms of rhetoric, trying to tamp down the protests. The language is interesting: rioters, not protesters. Looking at the Iranian state being looking out for the best interests of the Iranian people and society, as opposed to the best interests of the theocratic regime. So not surprising either in terms of style or substance. but maybe a harbinger of more to come.
All right. I also want to ask you, what do you feel about the entire situation in Iran overall?
Well, the Iranian regime is somewhat brittle, fragile, more so than it has been, although it comes and goes in waves. The economy is a mess. The military has been revealed to be utterly and completely incompetent and incapable of protecting Iran. See the 12-day war recently and the American strikes on nuclear facilities. So whether you're trying to ground the regime in its theocratic underpinnings, that's not working anymore. Mosques are empty in big chunks of Iran. In terms of the economy, the government delivering the economic goods, that's not working. In terms of playing a role as a regional great power with military power, that's not working. It's unclear to me on what grounds this regime can continue to legitimate itself, and that's why I characterize it as brittle. And now we're seeing a push in the streets, and we saw this in 1979, which toppled the Shah. We've seen it many times since then. The regime has always proved to be resilient and robust enough to resist but these are different times, and the Iranian state, the theocratic state, is at its most vulnerable, I think, since it came to power. And this may be the beginning of the end.
Andrew, why do you think the president chose to speak now after several nights of intensified unrest?
Well, I think the unrest is picking up a head of steam. And so what might have been dismissed, these protests happen periodically and they fizzle out pretty quickly, but this one seems to have gained a head of steam, seems not to be fizzling out, and so it's just a matter of, we misread the situation, this is actually serious, it's time to start signaling that we want this to end, and subtly, if it doesn't end, we're going to crack down.
All right, Andrew, please stay on with me. I'll come back to you. Now, in a major announcement, Saudi real estate developer Dar Global has unveiled plans to launch 2 Trump-branded luxury projects in Riyadh and Jeddah, totaling $10 billion in investment. The projects include the Trump National Golf Course and Trump International Hotel in Riyadh's Diriyah region, which is a sprawling development on the western edge of the Saudi capital. In Jeddah, a mixed-use development named Trump Plaza will feature both office spaces and residential properties. These projects are aligned with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, which aims to diversify the economy and attract direct foreign investment. Experts say that these ventures come as part of a growing partnership between Dar Global and the Trump Organization, which is the international arm of Saudi developer Dar Al Arkan. The development projects are expected to be completed over the next 4 to 5 years. Let's now hear from Ziad Elshad, the CEO of Dar Global, and Eric Trump, the Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization, as they share more about the future of these projects.
Between today and tomorrow, Dar Global, in collaboration with our parent company, we're going to be launching projects for the value of $10 billion in Saudi. We've been waiting for this time to come and preparing for it since our inception, which is the opening up of the Saudi market to the globe and being able also to engage with the mega projects to build such premium projects which have an international appeal. And to support all of that, when you bring in a global brand of exclusivity like Trump, this also helps you to bring in more foreign investors into the country and move from the traditional role of a real estate developer selling houses to a real estate developer becoming part of the FDI of that
project that we're doing here is beyond a golf hotel, super high-end residential. I mean, super high-end. It's going to be the highest end, in the market by a factor of a lot, and we're really excited about it. And so Riyadh's been beyond incredible, and we're going to do one more in Jeddah. So we've got our hands full, not only in Saudi Arabia but also in the region.
I have Andrew Latham, international affairs expert, joining me live from Minneapolis. Andrew, now what is the broader significance of Saudi Arabia backing Trump-branded luxury products of this scale right now?
Well, it works on two different registers. On the one hand, it works to the advantage of the Saudi firm. Obviously, it raises their profile, and the Saudi government, it advances their Vision 2030 agenda. All good on that side. On the American side, it raises some serious constitutional issues. We have two emoluments clauses, so-called, in the U.S. Constitution, one of which is relevant here because it deals with foreign powers. And basically, it says that the president shall not accept any gifts or offices or titles, sometimes called emoluments, from foreign interest, because the fear is that that would influence the president's decision-making. Past presidents have created an arm's length relationship between them and their financial assets so that they remain faithful to the emoluments clause. This president hasn't. He's turned over day-to-day management to his son, but he still remains the president and CEO of the Trump organization. And some people who have a more expansive take on the emoluments clause say he's in clear violation of it. Emolument means any gift or benefit, and he's clearly benefiting from this. Those with a more restrictive definition think of it simply in terms of quid pro quos, of specific gifts intended to elicit specific responses, and say he's not guilty of that. So it hasn't been resolved in the American courts, but there are norms that have evolved over the decades. Presidents always create an arm's length relationship between them and their financial interests. This president hasn't. This particular episode raises this issue once again.
You know, Andrew, given Donald Trump's ongoing political relevance globally, why do you think this announcement is notable at this particular moment?
Well, I think Trump's brand in Saudi Arabia is not particularly sullied. It's good. And tapping into his commercial network is not a bad thing. So again, from the Saudi perspective, this is perfectly rational and reasonable, both from the government and from the commercial interests perspective. I'm not sure that Trump's brand is actually going to enhance their commercial prospects globally. He seems to be not terribly well regarded at the moment. So this is a matter perhaps on the Saudi side of appealing to a domestic market and of tapping into a very real commercial network that could help them realize that Vision 2030 goal. So I think that's why it's popped. And for us in the United States and perhaps anywhere beyond Saudi Arabia, it just, again, reinforces an instinct, an intuition that there's a level of corruption in this Trump administration that is perhaps unprecedented. And President Trump isn't even slightly shy about that.
Andrew, how do you think this partnership will be viewed by the U.S. government, allies, and critics of Saudi Arabia?
Well, it looks an awful lot like a quid pro quo, at least potentially down the road, that the Saudis have this relationship with the president, and the president will therefore be influenced by the Saudis on big regional issues. I'm not sure it'll be quite that blatant, but it does bend the president a little more in favor of the Saudis, shall we say, because not only does he have a geopolitical perspective here, but now he has a personal economic, commercial interest as well. I see this as not playing well domestically in the United States, not playing well amongst America's adversaries and Saudi Arabia's adversaries around the world. The Iranians will make some hay of this. At the end of the day, though, I think this as an issue is probably likely to fade pretty quickly because it's not up there with Venezuela or Greenland or Israel and Gaza or any of those big headline issues. But for now, it once again does raise important issues in terms of constitutional law in the United States and in terms of America's geopolitical orientation in the Persian Gulf region.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate your time on NewsX World. Thank you for joining me. Now, in his first public remarks since last year's youth-led uprising, Nepal's deposed king, Gyanendra Shah, has expressed deep concern over the country's future. The former king spoke out during a National Unity Day event as royalists gathered in Kathmandu to mark the 304th anniversary of the birth of Prithvi Narayan Shah, who was the founder of unified Nepal. Shah, who was deposed in 2008 after a decade-long civil war and the abolition of Nepal's monarchy, has largely stayed out of the political spotlight. However, in a recent 12-minute video address, he has warned that Nepal might not survive in its current state, pointing out the ongoing crisis and dissatisfaction among the country's youth. Let's listen in.
नारायणहिटी राजदरबारबाट हामी बाहिरिएको करिब 2 दशक बित्दा पनि देशले सामना गरिरहनु परेको सङ्कटले हामीलाई चिन्तित तुल्याएको छ। समुन्नतिको यात्रामा सबै मिलेर अघि बढौँ। नेपालको संवेदनशील अवस्था र बदलिँदो भू-राजनीतिक परिस्थितिलाई बुझ्न नसक्दा हामी मित्र राष्ट्रहरूको विश्वास र भरोसा गुमाउने अवस्थामा पुगेका छौँ।
Now, while the monarchy was officially ended in 2008, support for its restoration has been lately growing. It is particularly in response to current political gridlock, corruption and slow economic progress. Just last year, thousands of royalists took to the streets of Kathmandu to demand the return of the monarchy, though major political leaders dismissed it as an unrealistic hope. I do have joining me now Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar, Senior Strategic and International Affairs Expert, joining me live from New Delhi. Major General Kochar, welcome. And I want to begin with your opening comments. How do you feel about this?
Vaishali, see, what has happened in Nepal is that I don't think people would like to bring back the monarchy in Nepal the way things have been. But there is a disillusionment in the people the way democracy has performed. So I think what King Gyanendra is trying to say is that people are disillusioned that the Republic of Nepal is not performing. So he is giving some kind of a shake-up call to the political parties to get their act together. He's not trying to pitch, because this is my analysis, he's not trying to pitch to get the monarchy back into power, which I don't think the people would want it also, because if you see the sentiments in Nepal, they are not for getting back monarchy. And if you see this, all elected governments in Nepal have been highly corrupt. Development has not taken place. Agriculture has actually suffered. Job employment is not there. People are going out of Nepal to seek employment. And you see in India how many Nepalis are there seeking employment. And so I think it is these major political parties are today being viewed as self-serving, inward-looking, and unable to deliver a governance outcome. So I think Sushila Karki, who's right now there at the helm of affairs, she has already announced that in March 2026 the elections will take place. So I think this Nepal's king's statement is also very, very close to the elections, and it can be connected with that particular aspect also. And it is telling the leaders of the country that he wants them to perform, and he wants them to take Nepal forward, and not the way Nepal is actually functioning now. And a second more aspect is the dominance of China now in Nepal, because this is also one factor which is going to have a shadow, or it will going to have an influence, I would like to say, that's the right word, on Nepal's elections, because all the previous governments, especially Oli's government, was perceived very, very close to Nepal. Even in his second term, he was more inclined towards Nepal. And as far India is concerned, we would be closely watching March 2026. We want to see a stable Nepal. It's very important for our own security environment. And we would also like to expand our reach into Nepal, which possibly in the last few years there has been a setback. And especially if I could, a small indicator was the Agniveer scheme, where none of the Nepalis are now coming forward to join the Indian Army, and many of them are going to Great Britain now to join the British Army. So that is also has been a setback in the relations. Our Chief of the Army Staff has recently visited Nepal and tried to assuage the feelings of the Nepalis that we are open to take their boys as our soldiers. But it will take more than that effort, because that 4 years embargo has put them off. So, and then we have those boundary disputes, Kalapani area, Lipu Lake area. Those areas are also and eyesore, and will have to be resolved, because there is a possible Chinese push to aggravate the boundary disputes between Nepal and India. So I think I can actually summarize this entire discussion in a manner that he's not trying to pitch for monarchy, but definitely he's trying to give a wake-up call to the political parties, because elections are coming near and he wants them to perform.
All right, Major General Kochhar, would request you to stay on with me. Now, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will call on group of 7 countries and others to intensify efforts to decrease dependence on critical minerals from China during a meeting with a dozen top finance officials. According to reports, the meeting, beginning with a dinner, will feature finance ministers or cabinet officials from the G7 advanced economies, the European Union, Australia, India, South Korea and Mexico. Bessent has said that he's been pressing for a separate meeting on the issue since a G7 Leaders Summit in Canada in June, where he delivered a rare earths presentation to gathered heads of state from the US, Britain, Japan, Canada, Germany, France, Italy, and the European Union. However, the leaders have agreed to an action plan at the summit to secure their supply chains and boost their economies. But Bessent has grown frustrated about the lack of urgency demonstrated by the attendees. I want to go across now to Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar, who's joining us live from Delhi. Major General Kochhar, now why is reducing dependence on China for critical minerals such a priority for the US and its allies right now?
A very good question, Vaishali. I think this future strategic war between China and the United States and the Western countries is going to be on rare earth elements. And why I'm saying it is that today China controls almost 60 to 70% of the global rare earth mining. Almost 85 to 90% is the processing and the refining capacity of China. So why these rare earths are important? Because they are used in defense systems, electric vehicles, renewable energy, semiconductors, advanced electronics, and US is dependent right now on China, and so is the Western countries, because they have not been able to reduce their dependencies on China due to a lack of availability of the rare earth elements either in America or in the NATO countries. So tomorrow's actually concern is for the US, because these rare earths are used in missiles, radars, fighter jets and satellites. So in case United States and the G7 don't get into that act together now, China is going to weaponize the supply chains like United States is trying to weaponize the tariffs today. So in times to come, I think President Trump has realized, the G7 also realizes that the weaponization of supply chain with regard to rare earth is likely to happen unless they get into the act right now, and that is why one is actually seeing that the US is planning to expand its mining capacities in California and Texas areas where these some portion of the rare earth are available. Rare earth are also categorized into two categories, heavy rare earth as well as a light rare earth. A light rare earth is not a cause of much concern because they are available in major parts of the world. Problem is the heavy rare earth, which unfortunately are concentrated more in China, right, and the northeastern part of Myanmar. And there are Chinese companies today who are present in Myanmar who are carrying out the mining of the rare earth, heavy rare earth in Myanmar and sending it across to China. And that is why America has its interest in Myanmar. If you recollect, the Arakan army has a headquarters in Washington, and America is trying to control parts of the Myanmar through the Arakan army. So I'm seeing this diversification now. I think Australia is a source, Canada is a source, Brazil is a source. So I think, and some of the African countries, and not to forget Greenland, because I would like to bring Greenland into the discussion, because why America is interested in Greenland is because of the availability of the rare earth elements. So this is now becoming a concern, and China is carrying out stockpiling. And also one more important factor is the cost competitiveness, because China is able to maintain that cost competitiveness. Everybody is going to China to buy these items because they are used in all electronic systems everywhere, and Chinese manufacturing goods, more than 35% of what China manufactures.
Major General Kochar, we're short of time. I'll have to interrupt you, but thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. Now, a gas cylinder has exploded after a wedding reception at a house in Islamabad, which killed at least 8 people, including the bride and groom. The blast occurred as the guests who had gathered to celebrate the couple were sleeping at the house, causing the house to collapse. Rescue workers and security personnel have inspected the rubble of the damaged house after the cylinder blast in the Christian colony in Islamabad. There are no injuries reported till now, and meanwhile an eyewitness and neighbor had to say,
10 या 15 मिनट का टाइम है, तो उसमें एक बड़े ब्लास्ट की आवाज़ से जब हम उठे, क्योंकि मेरा साथ वाला घर है, तो एक बड़े ब्लास्ट की आवाज़ से उठे हैं, तो दिमाग इस चीज़ की इजाज़त नहीं दे रहा था कि मतलब ये क्या हुआ है। तो जब उठे हैं, आगे जाके मैंने सारे वाक़यात को देखा है, और वाक़या देखने के बाद मैंने ऑब्ज़र्व किया कि हम इस चीज़ को नहीं देख सकते, हम इसको कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते। तो सबसे पहले मैंने कॉल किया है 15 पे, कॉल की 7:19 पे, तो वो सारी टीम आई है, बर वक्त पहुँची है, तो उन्होंने आकर अपना सारा काम शुरू कर दिया।
फिलहाल ये सिलेंडर है या क्या है क्या नहीं है, हम भी उठ के बाहर आ गए हैं सारे, और उनका जो मीटर है गैस वाला वो शां 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 कर रहा है, तो 3 घर है जिनको नुकसान हो गया, 3 के 4 घर।
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.